Welcome to the Curve, where ideas take flight, blending tech and teach.
Welcome to the Learning Curve. We're so glad that you're joining us today. I'm Carl Moen, a digital learning specialist here at Region 7.
I'm Benjamin Wood, I'm the coordinator of digital learning.
And we've got two very special guests with us today. I'm so excited that they're joining us. We have Michelle Cooper, Michael Pettiette. They are two of the librarians, the only two librarians that work in our department, and they travel around the whole region, really working with libraries and librarians, library aides, and all of the people who do all the library stuff. How many districts, how many campuses do you guys work with? It's a bunch.
We're in 70 libraries this year. Now that's not 70 districts, but quite a few libraries.
Yeah.
Probably 50 districts. Something like that.
Okay. So a lot. They're in a lot of districts, and there's only two of them. And so they are never here. So I'm so excited that we have them here today and we get to talk to them. And so one of the things that we want to talk about this morning, guys, is all of the stuff that you do with robots, with gamified learning, and how you're able to, first of all, leverage the technology, how you're able to work with these librarians, library aides, especially in so infrequent amount of time that you're able to spend with them, to really level up their learning. And so really we just want you guys to talk to us about the different stuff that you do, and if we think of something intelligent to ask, then we'll ask, and if not, we'll just sit here and just listen. So what have you got? Tell us all the things that you do with your libraries.
Sure. I was introduced to Ozobots by Michelle about 3 years ago, and if you don't know, Ozobots is a tiny little robot that's coded to find lines, and certain colors will make it do certain tricks and things like that. So my challenge was, I really enjoyed the robot, but how do I incorporate it, like you said, into the library, into a lesson? And what I've learned from Michelle and a lot of other people is it's very versatile. So that's what we have. We have a small goal where we want librarians to see that they can turn any book into a STEM lesson, or any robot can go with some book. So just as for instance with the Ozobots, we've seen a lot of success with using it to tell a story as it goes through the story. One that comes to mind is if you give a mouse a cookie, they stopped at every spot and did this. We've also seen our highest level we've seen, which was very surprising to me, was we presented it at a conference, and a high school calculus teacher saw the Ozobots and thought that will help show a certain function. Mm-hmm. And for 2 years now, she's used the Ozobots at the first of the year to teach a certain calculus function. That's very well. So just versatility and learning how it can apply in any scenario, and we want people to know that.
Yeah. So when you go in to a library and you've got your Ozobots and you've got a lesson, something ready to go, what's the process? Are you doing all of it? Are you teaching someone to do this? Are they checking things out? How are they accessing all this?
I think our favorite thing to do is to demo it and let them come up with the ideas and then get it to them to use. Yeah. That's where we get excited when someone says, I saw this and this is how I want to use it, and we say, when can we get it to you? Yeah. So that's our goal. Now many times we come in, for instance, soon I'm booked at a district, and I'll go to every fourth grade class and I'll do a small Ozobot lesson with them. But even in that, the goal is for the librarian to see if we had these, we could do this all the time. Yeah. So that's my underneath goal. I tell them that, of course.
Yeah. Yeah.
What I love about them and what I've seen you do with the students, I just think is so great. If you can expand on a little bit, the idea that you're getting, you said fourth grade there. What's the lowest grade level y'all do Ozobots with?
I truly believe I can go any grade level with them.
So you're teaching. Ultimately, you could use this with pre-K or kindergarten, most likely kindergarten and on. But you're getting them to code. Mm-hmm. Can you elaborate a little bit on that? I think that's phenomenal.
The big part of when I present elementary, middle, or high school is that this is coding. Mm-hmm. So we have a big discussion about coding beforehand and during. Like we'll throw out terms like what's a loop, and we'll have that discussion. And if they know a little or if they know a lot, we can run with that all we want. And we do this with a lot of our things. Try to get it to a book, or try to get it to a lesson. Try to just incorporate so many things. So for instance, Michelle introduced me to a book called How to Code a Sandcastle. And it talks about unplugged coding, and what that bridges to is just how you can show we are coded to do things. You do coding every day in your life. and all those gaps we can bridge with that. So yeah, the coding discussion is my end. Like, when I want them to leave at least knowing a few things about coding, or to see how they've already done all this, and now it's just in a tiny robot form.
So when you're saying I stop off and get a Coke Zero every morning, it's not
Absolutely, you're
addiction
coded.
to caffeine. It's
You're
I'm coding myself.
Yes.
Okay, good to know.
One of my go-to lines is that since I was born, I was coded that if good food gets here, it doesn't stay there. And children pick up on that very quickly. They understand that they're coded to do it.
No, that's awesome. So you're bringing coding into the ideas and things that the students study in the books that they read.
Right.
That's amazing.
That's really cool. So how do they, one last question on this, and then because we have other cool stuff to talk about.
Yeah.
How do they do the coding to make the robot do what they want it to do?
So the number one code of an Ozobot is to see a black line. So we do all sorts of black line tests, I call them.
Okay.
Can you make it turn? Can you make it jump paper? Can you draw a loop where it never stops? And that's the loop discussion. And then the next level, because we talk about levels, hey, we're at level 1 now, but you're doing so good, we're going to get to level 2. Is the color codes. It's coded to see red, green, and blue. And any different combination will make it do different tricks. And that's when you can really start building a story or building a map or something. I have one recently tried with a group of teachers where it's the life cycle of a butterfly. So they have the track, but you have to code it. So when you get to a certain point, you want the wiggle code because it's wiggling to get out of the chrysalis. And then you want to speed up when it gets out, but now when you're in the egg, it's slow, so you have to put that code in. So yeah, just trying to get those built-in codes to see.
Okay. So are they actually just physically drawing lines to make this
They
happen?
draw every part of it.
Okay.
They have to draw the line, they have to put in the codes, and then that's a good discussion about when you get to the color codes, they're very fickle, and it's a discussion of it's not going to work the first time.
Yeah.
You have to try again. And that failure is going to happen, and that's fine.
Yeah.
What do we need to do? How do we need to draw it different? We have plenty of paper, keep doing it.
Yeah.
And that's been a good discussion too, to see that they're so into it, they're not giving up.
Yeah.
They want to get that thing to turn around. So they might have to do it 6 times, but when it happens, to see that excitement, like, hey, come look at mine, I got it to do this.
Yeah.
That's what you go for.
I love that.
That's what you love.
I love building in the idea that, and this was, I'm going to steal a line, this was a Mythbusters line, I like that show, where they would say, failure is always an option.
Yeah.
That I have to recognize I'm going to get it wrong, and getting it wrong isn't a bad thing.
That's right.
That just means I have to try again.
Yeah.
And when you build in that grit and learning that learning is always iterative, always.
Yeah.
I think that's really, really helpful, really beneficial.
One of the things I learned when I started teaching coding a long time ago, I started with code.org 7 years ago, and it was very difficult for me not to take the mouse.
Mm-hmm.
And I was challenged to not take the mouse. Let them figure it out. Let them fail. You can certainly give them suggestions, but let them click some more. So I've thankfully brought that with the Ozobots, and I don't take the marker from them.
Mm-hmm.
I just say, hey, you need to make your code a little bigger, the code a little smaller. Let's see what we can do. And still difficult for me, but I know that's the right thing to do. So
That's really cool. That's really cool. But Ozobots aren't the only thing that we
That's right.
have.
That's
We've
right.
got several other things. So Michelle, I know that you like squishy circuits, which is so funny sounding to me. So tell me about a squishy circuit, what it does and what you can do with it and why it's a big deal.
A squishy circuit is actually one of my favorite tools because you're building a circuit. And so basically you have a battery pack and you have a red wire and a black wire. And then you have some non-conductive Play-Doh and some conductive Play-Doh. And so all that means is the conductive Play-Doh has lots of salt, using that as the conductor. And then the non-conductive Play-Doh does not. So you can either purchase it or you can make your own. The recipes are all online. It takes about 10 minutes. I did it with a group one day. And so it's really, really cool for them to see how to do that. So you just would plug in one side to the Play-Doh and another side to the Play-Doh, and then your circuit's still not complete, so you need to complete it with something. And so they have tons of LED lights, all different colors. Some sparkle and flash and do all kinds of cool things. And so they start to understand the concept of an open versus a closed circuit. And then once they get that, they can realize that they can use their non-conductive to build or to, create anything that they want to. So those are really fun for science lessons and everything, because if it's not working, then they have to go back in their process and figure out where it isn't working. And I love the idea that Michael brought up about failure, because I think whether it's robots or anything, if we can destigmatize failure, and the kids really don't feel that stigma when it's robots or gamification. They just keep plugging away because they are so motivated to succeed. And so what I love is try to extend that to other aspects of their life, like academics, or just their own personal choices. Because all you're really doing is revising and editing and using that engineering design process. So I want them to be able to take it and apply it to other things, and know that, hey, I didn't get 100 in English. It's okay. I'm not supposed to get 100 every time, and kind of destigmatize that for them.
That's really good.
So I actually had a chance to come into one of the classrooms that you were doing this with, and I was just staggered by how intricate some of their designs got after a certain period of time. Could you kind of go on a little bit about like what you've seen kids do with it, as far as like what they build or what? Because what's so interesting, and you touched on it a second ago, is in both of these, their curiosity is fueling their learning. And that's amazing. And it's just so neat, because you tell them, hey, we're going to make a circuit, and then they just make all kinds of things. Like, what are some of the things you've seen?
Probably one of my favorite things was, it was a bee with a flower. And so they had their flower constructed here, whatever color they wanted. And they had a bee over here. And so they had one wire going to their flower and one to their bee. And then they had a buzzer added in, because there's buzzers and motors and all kinds of things. So when they touched the bee, like it was pollinating the flower, it made the buzzing sound to kind of go with the bee. But I've also seen windmills. They've taken I love to do it with recycled materials, so they would take the top of a coffee cup, the plastic, and they put that on there to make a windmill with their motor. And they come up with way better ideas than I could ever come up with, to be honest. So I try not to give them any preconceived ones.
Yeah, and I like that too, because our students are so capable of far more than we often think they are. If we'll just turn them loose and say, here, figure this out and do something really interesting with it. And that was something that we've talked about before, but something that I saw even in my own class was when I stopped telling them what to do and let them tell me what they wanted to do, it was just astounding what they could make. They're far more capable than we often give them credit for.
Yes,
Well, one thing too with both of those, I'm sure, and I saw it when I was in the classroom that day, when you had to transition, when those kids had to leave and another group come in, or when we were going to another classroom, there was wailing and moaning as you left, because they wanted to keep doing it. They were just genuinely interested in the process. They wanted to do that. And I think that's something that we should treasure in education, that they desire more time with the content on there. And I just think that speaks volumes to the stuff that you're doing with gamification and all those things.
And I think Michael will agree that I don't think we have ever had any behavior problems, because they are so engaged. And I think it's just reaching out to them in a different way.
Before we leave Squishy Circuits, I want to say something that was wonderful to me. One of the first times I saw Michelle do it, we were using a book called Hey Ho, to Mars We'll Go. It was about going to Mars and how they do all that. Wonderful book. So we had our library connection with the book, and then we had our Squishy Circuits. And then there's a video that she has that we've used many times, where an astronaut reads that book from the space station. So she talks to the kids, and she's, anti-gravity, and she's like, these buttons over here, and the book right here. So that showed me one of my favorite things in the classroom was starting somewhere and never knowing where it was going to go. Yeah. But the kids got interested in this, so we took this turn, and then we said, oh, let's do this, and then a month later, you've done a lot of stuff from a starting point. So even with that, you start with a library book, you end up with hands-on circuit activities.
That's really cool.
And then you have a virtual field trip to the space station where an astronaut reads you the book that you know. And PJ, like you're saying, the kids are like, oh, that's the book, and she's got the, so just bam, 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 one after another. All the bridges you can go across with that.
That's really cool.
I always love it. Makes me excited.
So we've got Ozobots.
That's right.
We've got Squishy Circuits. What else do we have? What else can we play with? What else can we bring into the library, into classrooms?
So a long time ago, before I was a digital learning specialist, I attended a workshop Michelle did, and we used Spheros, little balls, to paint.
Okay.
And I kept the artwork I made from that Sphero, from that workshop, in my library in a very prominent position, because I was very happy with that artwork. So that was my first taste of seeing that Spheros were more than just run a ball across the carpet when Michelle did that. And now she's got even more exciting Sphero stuff. So.
Yes, I'm excited. I have some Sphero Indies, which is a little robotic car, and it's coded by color. So this is made for pre-K through 2nd or 3rd grade, but honestly, all grade levels love it. I have used it with all of them, and so you have a set of tiles that are different colors that tell the robot to do certain things, and you always start on green, and then it'll tell it to go right, left, to roll around. Red means stop, and it's so neat because a lot of the things we have, may not go all the way down to the 3 and 4 year olds, but these do, and it's just magic to talk to them about coding, and you're giving a set of instructions to your robot, and they feel like, wow, and you tell them, hey, you're a coder, and they get so excited about it. So I have loved those because they're specifically designed for the littles. There are others that we have, they're called RVR Pluses. They're kind of like a tank. They have the wheels, yes, they have the wheels and the tread, and so I've got to use those with secondary students. They absolutely love them. We have had races, obstacle courses with them, and what's great about those is, of course, you can drive them like any Sphero product, but you also, then we challenge them, well, you need to go through that obstacle course, but you need to code it now so it goes on its own. So they do the drag and drop coding. And so the last lesson we did on it, we had their course and we challenged them. They had to get to the door but not go past the door. So they had to figure out, and it took them several times to figure it out, but eventually they did, just through that revise and edit process of the drag and drop coding and the loops and the what is my speed, what do I need to set my speed at, and what duration, how many seconds is it going to be to get there. And so fascinating. It goes way beyond me into lots of higher level math and science, but it's exciting to see them get excited about learning.
Absolutely.
Because they don't even realize how much they're learning, I think, at the time.
I think that really touches on something too, that we are learners. That's who we are. And sometimes what we've done is we've almost taught the learning out of school because for the sake of whatever the thing might be, and it's not that anybody's maliciously doing this. It's just that because of things that we have to do, sometimes we teach the learning out of it, but we want to learn, and when we can find creative and engaging ways to solve problems, because that's all this is. It's solving a problem. It's how am I getting from here to there? And I love that you're connecting it with literature, with books, because we also are in a world where people don't always read. And so we're able to connect, hey, look, this cool science stuff with books. And I think that's amazing too.
I think when you talk about connection, I think that's going to lead us into another podcast here in a little bit about what libraries mean for districts and campuses. But one thing that you talk about, and that really stood out to me, is this idea of competition. And I don't think necessarily, I don't think you're giving gold medals out to the winner or anything, but the spirit of competition drives our students, and you're setting up situations where students can do that, and I think that drives our learning as well with that. Now, put you on the spot a little bit. Michelle is much too humble to know this, but you're specially designated with these Spheros, right? Can you walk us through what you have? It's very not many people have this.
Well, I applied last year. I've always had goals, and I always shared them with my kids when I was in the classroom or in the library. Like I always not force them, I encourage them to create a big, hairy goal, whether it was personal or educational. And so I was like, I can't really do that unless I'm doing it too. So I've always had one. And so last year, we had heard about, I think actually our director, Liz Walker, had told me about it. It was the Sphero Hero. And it's just a way to be an ambassador for Sphero. And so I applied. It was kind of a lengthy process, but I applied, and I had to create some lessons, some original lessons using the Sphero. And I was lucky enough to be one that got chosen. And so it's just kind of an honor and just another way to share the love of robotics.
And I think that's phenomenal for our East Texas area, our Region 7 area. Y'all are in 70 campuses this year with that, and just having that expertise and acknowledgement, I think, speaks volumes to the services that y'all are providing to our districts with that. So I want to give you great accolades on that.
And they can provide these services for your district too.
That's right.
Although we're going to have to start hiring more librarians because we're running out of time. But the goal behind what we're trying to do, it's always about improving student outcomes. It's always about trying to make learning more engaging and really connect our kids to things that they like, but that in the process they discover, oh, I learned all of this really cool stuff. And so I'm so excited about the work that Michelle and Michael are doing in these libraries, and just so glad that I get to work with them and get to know them, and they're just wonderful people, and they really bring some class to the podcast as well. So I'm glad that you guys got to spend some time with us today. So any closing thoughts? And I know we just talked about 3, and I know there's a bajillion other things that we do, and we'll get to that maybe in a later episode, but just some closing thoughts on particularly gamification, but then how we can engage students with learning.
I would just say, don't be scared to try it. You don't have to know exactly how it's going to turn out. You don't have to dictate every step. It's going to turn out way better than you anticipate because the students will take control over it. So whether it's coding or just anything, the best part of it was when I decided I didn't have to be the expert in the room on something and could let the kids explore and do. And so I think that was a big mind shift that I made that really helped.
Yeah, I certainly agree with that. And then for me, one of the things I've noticed in the last 3 years, and I've said this to a lot of people, is I truly believe it's a golden age for resources for teachers. Education certainly always has challenges, but as far as resources, even in my time, I've been in public education for 20 years, and the way things have shifted and changed as far as resources, not just physical resources like the Ozobots or Spheros, but what AI is doing to help teachers and just the things we have at our fingertips to get those kids interested, to get the kid that would never be interested in something. We have tools that we can try. I'm very excited about that, and I'm very excited that more and more people are seeing that I don't have to be, as Michelle said, the number one. I just have to get it in front of the kids and see what we can do with this. I truly believe it's a golden age for resources, and that's just always a fun thing to be a part of.
Absolutely.
You know?
Absolutely.
So I have to do this anytime we have librarians on. We're going to ask you, what book would you recommend for your librarians to read, or your libraries or your students to read? What's the hot new book?
Or old book. It
Or
doesn't
old
have to be
book,
new.
yeah.
That's just that's a really loaded question. I was not prepared for such gotcha media because there's too many. But I'll go one. Right now, the Wild Robot movie is wonderful, and it is almost 1-to-1 with the book. So you could pair that really easily. So go Wild Robot, and then you'll immediately want to read the 2 sequels. And then you can go see the movie and tell the kids, or have a good discussion with the kids about that.
That's good.
Wild Robot right now.
Michelle?
Trying to think. I think I'll go with a children's book. And this is not a new one, but it's one that's dear to my heart. It's The Sneetches by Dr. Seuss. And I always used it with when I taught high school, I always used it with my high school kids to start the year off because it's a great story about bullying, and I kind of think it's timeless. So.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
I love to use that with high school students too. That's fantastic. Yeah. All right. Well, thanks so much for joining us today, and we're so glad that we had Michelle and Michael on, and you will see them again coming up soon. So be on the lookout for that. And we are always at your service, so please give us a call whenever you need something. Thanks for joining us.
Welcome to the curve, where ideas take flight. A blend blending tech and teaching, sparking insight.